Do you feel as if you don't belong? Do you know you were meant for something more? Well, you were. Knowledge of who you are and where you really are from is within your reach. Join Janet Carol Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin as they search for the answers as they open up the Stargate to the cosmos.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Stargate to the Cosmos. I'm your host, Janet Carol Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin, and our producer is Debra DeFranco. You're listening to Revolution Radio Studio B. And today our guest is T. Robert Welling, but he likes to go by TR. That's what his favorite name is. And he was, let's see, a little bit about his bio. He's had an interesting life. He was born in Amherst, Ohio. And his Tiffin, Ohio was founded by his ancestors in the 1700s, where he lived till 1980. He describes himself as an oddball, choosing not to seek higher academic education until his late 30s. He has a keen fascination with linguistics, archaeology, history, sociology. So he annoyed his teachers and administrators to no end. And in more than a few occasions, he flunked the class because he knew more than the instructor. I'm married to one of those. I can relate to that. No, he's a wonderful man. But yes. So I guess what you're saying is you're kind of a geek and you're very intelligent. So I don't know if you got a chance to look at the webpage. Did you, honey?
I can speak for myself when it's my turn.
Okay. Would you like to say something before I bring on TR?
Hey, TR, I know you've got I collect all these stories about Jesus. It's one of my hobbies. All these different versions of what Jesus is and what his story is to different people. And so I know you've got a really neat one too. So I'm eager to hear that.
So what we're going to do with TR is he's going to show his PowerPoint, but we're going to slow him down. If it's not making sense to somebody who's just, oh goodness, am I muted? No, I'm not muted. Okay. Can you hear me, Debra? Hello?
Can you hear me?
No. Okay.
Can you hear me?
So,
Can you hear me?
TR is going to show his PowerPoint presentation, and we're going to slow him down and ask questions and make it so you can understand it even if you're just listening. And then later, like tomorrow or the next day, we will upload the PowerPoint to YouTube, and you can go back and see what we were talking about. So you get another level of it because this information is fascinating. So welcome to our show.
Can you hear me?
TR. Yes, we can hear you.
Good.
Can you tell our listeners a little bit about you that I might have missed, things you want our listeners to know about you, who you are and your history, and how you came to this point?
Sure. My name is TR, and I am of the Ogle family, which is the Ogle family is the Gaelic version of the name Northumberland, the southeast corner of Scotland. That is Northumberland, and it used to be the kingdom used to be profoundly larger. It used to stretch all the way down to Sherwood Forest and all the way up to Ogilvie, Scotland. And I'm from that family. One of the things that the Ogles do is we create libraries and universities, and the inappropriate people like to come in behind us and use their big cannons and larger armies and such and take them from us. Among the notable libraries that was taken from us would be Harvard, Newcastle, Edinburgh, St. John's, among others. So those libraries actually come from us. And the family dates back a considerably large a long way back to the first documentation of our history is when we organized Hastings. De Ogle and Humphrey were the XO of the army that William the Conqueror was put in charge of. We put him in charge of that army, but it was our army. We paid for it, we went and got it, and we went and did Hastings 1066 to dethrone the Pictish kings that were on the throne of London, not England, not Britain. There is so that's, my family goes back a long way. And there's other documentation that takes it back farther, but things get a little bit weird in that aspect. One of the things that my hometown is Tiffin, Ohio, Tiffin, and which contains the University of Heidelberg, which is some other aspects of my research are about the creation of psychology in that building. The Prussians were not exactly interested in telling the truth then or now, and so the psychology was not created in Heidelberg, Prussia. It was created in Heidelberg, Tiffin.
In Ohio.
Pardon?
You're saying in Ohio?
No, it's just named after it, honey.
Okay.
Ohio was where my family basically founded the area, and dozens of the towns in the area of the Ohio River Valley my family founded in the 1700s, and the Prussians came in behind and did inappropriate actions and erased our history, but the books came from us. So that's a bit more about my history and about some of the other things that I'm working on studying.
Interesting. Okay. So if you want to start the PowerPoint, so you're going to go to Egypt for part of this, and then you're going to unpack the story of Jesus.
But also, I want to know how this ancestral background that you've just talked of, affects what you wind up finding.
And how did you get your ancestral background? Did you go on, did you get your DNA done, or was this something handed down through generations?
Bits and pieces of several of those things. I have not done my DNA, but I don't kind of really need to do my DNA because my father and his mother and her mother and her father. Well, her father was Elmer Ogle of Tiffin, Ohio, and they go back in Ohio. They go back about 6 generations, and then they go back to another Ogle city in Maryland, and that goes back to the birth records are pretty clear when they go back for the previous several hundred years. My ancestors were born in Edinburgh Castle or Ogle Castle, Newcastle, and that area in there, and there's about 20 castles that still either bear our name or the name that we gave them in that immediate area of the Firth of Forth. So that
very interesting. Yeah,
in the Edinburgh area.
I'm starting to do the research of my genealogy because I get there's different stories. It goes back to the Mayflower, back to the Virginia colonies, and then most of my DNA is UK. But anyway, some people say don't get your DNA analyzed, but it's very interesting. So I was too curious. I went and did the test, and so
good,
fascinating. Yeah. So I had a story from Lawrence Gardner, who established the libraries, he got to go into these ancient libraries through the royals, right? And they're at least 1,000 years old, right? And so in his life, he was one of the few that was allowed to go in and study the records, and he wrote a series of books about this alternative history that most people don't know. about the Anunnaki, and he was able to do the genealogy all the way back to Anu, and he connected it through Jesus back to Enki, Enlil, and the Anunnaki. So I'm curious about your research and where you're going, but I guess it's just let's begin, and then it'll become more obvious as we unfold into the show.
Yes.
Okay.
To answer the pressing question is that what does this have to do with Jesus? What does my research have to do with Jesus? Well, two things. There's two connector aspects of the research that bump directly into one this time of year, which would be we're a couple days from Christmas, which would be in one way of looking at it the birth of Jesus, which took place in as the archaeology and the theocrats state it took place in the cave of the Nativity, where there's a temple over that there's a cathedral over that cave right now. Well, if you
where is the cave of the Nativity? What part of the world is it?
Bethlehem.
There's all kinds of controversy.
It's not in Galilee. That's a lot of the scholars say that Jesus was born in Galilee.
It's supposed to be in Bethlehem. Is it indeed in Bethlehem? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, according to this specific type of mathematics that is of the pyramids, the causeways of the pyramids, which used to be 1 or 2 mile long passageways, sidewalks for lack of a better description, that were bordered by big walls about 15, 20 feet tall each one, and they were parallel and they stretched from the pyramid straight out to point at a very specific direction, hundreds of miles beyond the entrance temple of that 1 or 2 mile long corridor would be a destination building. In the case of now bear with me, DJED, ISIS, that pyramid, which is approximately one Great Pyramid south of the Pep in the first pyramid, that causeway bisects the cave that is supposedly the birthplace of Jesus Christ. So there is the architecture matches and mirrors each other 260 miles away in the Levant Lands. Now, Levant Lands is a huge area that contains Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Galilee, and those areas. It's a large area that contains lots and lots of smaller cities and areas. The Vent Pyramid, its causeway bisects King Solomon's Temple, which is 3 miles north. Although the dead ISIS pyramid, it's several miles north of the Bent Pyramid, and the Bent Pyramid is all the way to the south. How this is?
So these causeways, were these causeways like roadways? Did people travel in them?
Only for sacred purposes. Only for sacred purposes. This is very, very sacred. This is there's only clergy, and they were only used on very specific dates, on very specific times in those dates were those causeways used. The rest of the time, the causeways were not used almost exclusively with the big huge walls, and they were very long. They were in the complex of the pyramid, and the pyramids were not exactly close to civilization.
TR,
Memphis
what
was
kind
miles
of
and miles away.
What kind of pattern? When you look at all of those together, what kind of pattern do they make?
The Aten, Aten, the ancient monotheistic deity of the Aten, is what the causeways are designed to pattern around.
Thank you.
If you use Google Earth and draw a ruler line down the center of each of the 16 causeways, it'll create the Aten over a quarter of the globe.
And so this could be visible from afar, from a spaceship. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
those lines would be visible from space if you drew the line with the architecture from point A to point B of the architecture. The lines were easily visible from space.
Wow.
So, TR, before we go further, do you have visuals? Do you want to start sharing your screen? It's down there in the by the chat symbol. If you hit share screen, we can see what you're talking about or what you want to talk about.
Sure. I don't have it on this computer. I have these graphics on a different computer, on a different hard drive. I'd love to.
Okay.
I included in my, yes, I included it in slide 18 of my PowerPoint is that what I was talking about, the seeing it from if you extend the lines pretty far out, you can see the Aten is very clear from half the globe. If you zoom out with Google Earth to half the globe, you can see the Aten nicely spread out.
So, what time frame for the creation of this? What do you get? Was the same as the Nazca lines? Was it the same? How old is it?
Yeah. What time? When was this created?
2600 BC to 2100 BC, with the time of the Old Kingdom. Construction stopped when the Hyksos invaded and did their best to erase what the previous had done. That's when it was over 500 years, from 2600 BC to 2100 BC is when the Aten was built into the causeways that are. So the causeways are actually much more impressive than the pyramids that they are just to the east of.
Wow, that makes so much sense to me. Basically the Amorites who were the attack, the Hyksos were the people who were bringing Marduk, Satan's trip, in against Yahweh's trip, and that's who they were, and that was what the fight was. And this is all making so much sense. Go on, I'm fascinated.
Now as it applies to the crucifixion, which applies for a few months from now, is that if you draw a line from the farthest north pyramid, Djedefre, say that again, Djedefre. If you draw a line from the farthest north pyramid all the way to the very center of the next pyramid, which is Khufu, to the next pyramid, which is Khafre, to the next pyramid, which is Mem-Kare, which actually is two words. It's not one word, it's two. Mem and Kare. It translates to Mem's sacred place, which for the evidence sake, the Mem part, M-E-M, is extremely important for the Roman Empire and the city of Rome, and specifically the Roman Forum, which geometry-wise is extremely important to this functionality structure. Then go from the Djedefre pyramid down to the bent. What you're making is that line that you will be creating is the double spine, the double Siamese twin spine of the Roman schema of Janus, which applies to this time of year strongly because you have the west face of Janus, the old man with the beard, or the old person with the crone, the old man, is looking west. That's the old man.
Saturnalia, yeah.
The baby New Year is looking east. Well, that's Janus. That's the Roman schema of Janus. Well, that schema came into the Romans called the ceremony that did all that stuff. They called that ceremony Memento Mori, M-E-M-E-N-T-O space Mori, and it translates to remember you are dead. And it has to do with the functionality of the ceremony itself, but that the name comes from the fourth pyramid down from the Djedefre pyramid, from going south. the name of Memento Mori ceremony comes from that pyramid. That the Siamese twins are from the Judefre pyramid down to mid-spine is the west face. From mid-spine down to the hip is the east face, and from mid-hip down to the bent is again the west face, the west spine of Janus is built into the pyramids. So the Romans copied Janus from the pyramids. And for more evidence of that, all the causeways, biochemically, by an at-phys class, all the causeways are where the major nerves split off of the spine to be able to make the body function. The pyramids are 300 square miles of construction, but it's a greatly expanded upon biochemical structure of the Siamese twins of Janus, and where every single major nerve comes off of the spine is where a causeway is. That can't be accident. That's too much construction. Took 500 years to build them. That the double spine is what can be semi going. Oh, that's by chance, maybe, sort of. You can't have exact positions of all the major nerves coming off the spine where the causeways are. With that great a detail, it had to be had to be purposeful. There's the statistical chance that this was all but an incredible coincidence is really not likely. So the double spine is extense. Now, if you tilt the head, the top of the spinal cord, the Juded pyramid, if you tilt the head straight up, as in you're looking straight over you like a Superman kind of thing, you would be looking directly, and 1,300 miles away, of course. You would be looking down this very, very center of the Roman Forum from the Colosseum through the temple structures to Caesar's temple, through the open space and you'd stop at the Capitoline Hill, and of course flanked by the temple of Jupiter and the temple of Juno on either sides. And also, you'd also be looking at off to a couple of degrees to the north. You'd also be looking at the Vatican a mile and a half away, which there's some other geometry involved with from the south wall of the Colosseum through the very dead center of the Arch of Titus. If you extend that line all the way, it goes to the very dead center of the Sistine Chapel's west wall. The painting of the west wall, the fresco of that west wall. If you draw a line from the west wall of the Sistine Chapel through the middle of the Roman Forum through the middle of the Arch of Titus, which is actually really, really horribly named, which comes to the point of the crucifixion situation, to the very end of the outer portion of the south wall of the Colosseum, that's a dead straight line. So you have a dead straight line that's just off center of the line that if you're in the middle of the Roman Forum looking east, looking at it toward the Colosseum, you would see the head of the west face of Janus, the skull of the west face of Janus. Looking at the skull dead on. You looking straight down the skull of the west face of Janus. If you were standing several dozen feet west of the Temple of Caesar, which is the first major building on the east side of the open forum layout building, forum structure. With Trader's Post right behind you by several hundred feet. Go ahead.
You're saying this is some grand design, like somebody has the vision to see from space or something? Are they following ley lines? What are these? How did they figure this out? These are obviously not primitive people, but do you have any idea what the purpose is of following this design and having certain structures and buildings at certain points connecting? And obviously a human just standing there can't see 300 miles, right? So do you have a theory of what was going on and the reason for all this intricate math within these structures and these designs of these multi-country configurations? You're going from Rome to Egypt, and etc. What's your hypothesis?
That they were a lot more advanced than we give them credit for, and what that advanced science would almost guaranteed to have something to do with space flight. Because we only found it. 3 of the tools necessary to prove to make Google Earth in the first place require space flight, require satellites, require the International Space Station, and requires GPS location, as well as extremely high-res digital photographs of the Earth to be able to create a mosaic of a real-time mosaic of, well, at least semi-real-time, of the planet Earth. Well, 3 of the tools and a 4th application of one of the tools is how we proved it existed in the first place. Modern culture proved it existed. They built it. It's very difficult to figure out how they would have built it without the use of, being able to coordinate architecture on 3 separate continents over 2,000 miles. That becomes how do they, show me evidence of how they did it without using space flight.
Yeah, it would be very interesting to say, given this configuration, this would be the hypothesis, you'll find on the exact globe exactly the same configuration, or one that's directly related by being exactly the opposite. But in any case, it would be a relationship. And so what you've got there then is a hypothesis that's built right into your formula, and it could be tested.
Yes. I love the scientific method.
So what is the purpose of the pyramid from your perspective?
Jacob's ladder.
Yeah.
Say it again?
Jacob's ladder.
Jacob's ladder, okay. And what is Jacob's ladder in your perspective?
Yeah, it's Jacob's ladder. Well, at least one part of Jacob's ladder. I think hypothesize that Jacob's ladder is in 2 parts. The array part of it, like anyone seen the movie Contact with Jodie Foster about 25 years ago? That was filmed primarily at the very large array on the St. Augustine Plain in Socorro, New Mexico. Well, just outside of that. The bird claw, one back and two 45-degree angle out. That configuration of angles of where the satellites are placed. Well, if you take a satellite, just visualize a normal satellite. Now square it off and turn it upside down. You now have a pyramid. If you square it off, that same angle, those same degree lines, both of the dish itself and square it off instead of having it round, and then flip it of course upside down, you have the exact same shape in the pyramid. So you have an array in the pyramids. So the pyramids are also an extremely large array that was built purposeful to be able to record, being able to interact with electromagnetic radio waves from either the planet or the cosmos. But one of the important things to know about to make note of regarding the extremely large array that is the pyramids of Egypt is that you need listening and recording places to be able to track the sound vibrations that are coming in. Well, you've got every pyramid complex has between 2 and 20 rooms that are mostly empty. It sounds like a good place for a hollow room with perfect acoustics for those chirps to come through the gold or the copper from the majority of the materials, like 95% of the materials used in the pyramids, are materials that had between a 90 and a 97% quartz component. They were made, the limestone is above 95% quartz, and granite is also above 95% quartz. So you have hundreds and hundreds of tons of quartz, all stretched in over a 200 square mile area. Well, what happens when you compress quartz? Well, the easiest scientific description for what happens when you compress quartz is in a submarine, that the chirping sound you hear on the speakers, the chirping sound you hear is pressure from the pressure in the water hitting quartz. A slice of quartz, a very thin slice of copper, slice of quartz, slice of copper, repeated. As the pressure wave hits, the quartz releases electricity. That electricity goes into the copper. The copper then makes the speaker chirp. Same exact principle, just not using water, using air pressure and thermodynamic pressure from the sun heating the rock. So you have lots and lots of chirping going on when the pyramids were built, before all the copper and the other sound making equipment was stripped out by later conquerors.
It sounds like a transformer and a capacitator. It's just like this whole electrical system.
Yes. And about 90% of it's still there. Very much so.
And it's part of what they're not, that we're not letting, the potentials of tapping this energy would put the oil men out of business.
Yes. Yes. We can't have that. No, can't have that. So, No. The Exxon needs its billions per quarter.
So this is how the Anunnaki, they had a grid, and it was very powerful, and it was better than ours. That's how they powered their whole planet. Luxor had lights. They had lights back then.
Light bulbs, yes.
And they had a station that would get charged by being right over the monoliths. The monoliths would pick where the receivers.
That's one. That's one way to absorb the electricity. Yes, there's others, but that is true.
And the craft was to hover, and they had a station that would just stay there for large parts of the history that Sitchin recorded. It was just there. These people were shuttling gold back and forth from Sipar to Mars.
I know nothing about that part.
Okay. Yeah, they were using that energy, and I think you're right on about the sonar. This is a major sound component about what they were doing and what these what Jacob's Ladder was about, and the role of sonar in moving stuff around.
Yes. The construction is actually pretty easy on that same exact line of thinking, scientifically, of course. A 3-year-old's toy of put a magnet in one hand and put another magnet in the other, and then have them the polarities, the push part. Well, push. Well, all you have to do is attach either a battery or a source that provides greater levels of electricity. The more electricity you pump into those magnets, the larger the field, and the harder, the more PSI will be generated to be able to push those magnets apart. Well, if you have that, it's in its most basic maglev system. There's a maglev at Walt Disney World. There's most of the Japanese bullet trains operate off of maglev system, magnetic levitation. All you have to do is have a power generator, put a magnet up and one magnet down, and you can then, as long as you have enough electricity, the magnets can push against each other by several tons psi. So that's an extremely easy way to have the pyramids constructed in the first place. Is just instead of having manpower and muscle power to move the sleds, have a track of magnets and have a sled of magnets and have pump electricity into both of them. Yeah. You can slide. Doesn't matter how heavy the thing on the sled is, as long as there's enough psi generated to push the magnets apart. That you can move hundreds, if not thousands, of rocks into place per day using maglev system. No problem. Easy peasy.
But the longer the line, the greater the electricity too, probably.
Yes. So the first ones were a little bit difficult. There was not that much electricity. At the end, there's 1.21 gigawatts, all the electricity you need to have, pun intended. Wow. And by the way, another additional little information is that from the distance between the north face of the Djed pyramid, which is the farthest north pyramid in the sequence, to Alexandria, Egypt, is 250 miles. 250 miles is well within the range of the 300 miles necessary for electricity conduction from the power plant to the city. That's modern technology. That's modern understanding. The power plant is put less than 300 miles away from the city that it needs to power. Well, the pyramids are less than 260 miles away from the Alexandria Lighthouse, which had that lighthouse that kind of some kind of a oddity up there that protected the city for centuries. With it could throw some kind of a thing out there and destroy navies miles out to sea. Well, add these pieces of information to that, and there's some kind of an electrical beam possible. Yeah. Because electricity is close enough behind you by 260 miles.
So that's what modern aircraft carriers that our Navy has exactly. For its artillery. Just exactly what you're saying.
Yes. Yes, a railgun. Yes, absolutely. Yes, sir. Absolutely. But the other part of the Jacob's ladder that I was going to describe is the Colosseum itself is also a satellite, but it's pointed up, not down. If you look at a satellite at the Colosseum, if you take cross version of it, it's in the exact shape of the inside cross shape of a satellite. So you have a satellite going pointed down with the pyramids, and you have a satellite pointed up at the Colosseum.
Perfect fit.
Yes. So you have a micro pointed up and a macro pointed down. 1,300 some miles between each other. So you have the geometry to be able to have a very, very large spectrum of electromagnetic detection.
Right.
Electromagnetics are, of course, visible light spectrum, electricity, radio waves, FM, AM. That's all within the electromagnetic spectrum. Electromagnetics is kind of like IQ of a spectrum analysis. Where something exists within the electromagnetic spectrum is the waves, the EM waves that it interacts with. So if you have the AM band, the FM band, visible light spectrum band, the infrared and such. Those are all in the electromagnetic spectrum. So it's fairly easy to understand if you put it in the right perspective. So the ancients had built of course the Colosseum wasn't built until after 70 Common Era, but there was construction there beforehand, and that construction was similar in orientation, not a Colosseum, of course, but it was in a similar bent of electromagnetic spectrum absorption and recording capabilities, as in all those funerary rooms in the pyramid complexes. The same thing, just not with a different shaped pyramid, different shaped satellite in the city that was the city of pillars that was in the lake, wetland, river, what have you. That's still under that the land under the Colosseum is still wet. It's just they drain the city architects and engineers they've just drained it for the last 2,000 years, a little bit less. It's been drained, dig down several feet, the water, the filled dirt under the Colosseum is still wet to this day.
Wow. Hey, I want to go back to Alexandria, where
Sure.
Jesus was a little kid. He must have been aware of the power system that was running the city, and the Romans were. So he was okay. Good.
What makes you say that he was aware? Are you referring to a story or something?
We know his history enough to know where he was. And now we are hearing that there's this grid that's running through the city, and that the educated people, like the Caesars of their day, knew what was going on. Is what TR's hypothesis is, and I think it's a very powerful one.
Jesus was a member of the Julii family.
There you go. Exactly. So he's. In other words, he is probably, he might even be the son of Julius Caesar, even given the time that he was around.
Grandson.
If you really think about it.
Grandson or great grandson.
Yeah. That line though, because they say, you probably heard the story that if Caesar's assassination was faked, and he lived out his days in Alexandria because he didn't want anyone to know he had epilepsy. Did you relate to that story at all?
Other than that's exactly what Caligula did. I didn't know that. I'm not aware that Julius may have done that Caesar may have done that too. But Caligula, that's what Caligula's open outright plan was. He said, I'm going to resign the emperorship. I'm going to hand it to Claudius purposefully, and I'm going to evacuate out of here and go live the rest of my life in Egypt. He made no bones about that, and multiple times to multiple documents to multiple people. That's exactly what he was going to do. So I'm not aware that Caesar was going to do that, but that may have been a plan of Caesar's too, some 60, 70 years before then. But sure, that's
right.
That's entirely realistic.
So we have about 13 minutes for the break. You want to go into the Jesus story a little bit and leave that as wherever we leave it?
I can go into the
Jesus.
Jesus.
Do you have a share screen?
Pardon?
You were doing a PowerPoint, and we haven't shown any visuals yet. I guess we should start that after the break. We have a break at the top of the hour for 4 minutes.
Okay.
But anyway, and Debra's typing as well. So we have 12 minutes till break. Yeah. So you want to tell us a little bit about, from your perspective, the Jesus story. So you're saying there's a real historical Jesus, and it wasn't a myth, that this actually happened.
Yes.
And so Jesus was some royal line, And
Yes.
we don't know if it was through Caesar or he's from the House of David, what the House of David means. Do you have any idea what the House of David means? What they mean by the House of David?
I had ideas about that several years ago, but I'm not thinking specifically about that right now. I'm thinking more about the telling you about the ideas regarding the physical, tangible evidence of the crucifixion of Jesus, which did not take place in Levant lands. That's fiction. The crucifixion would not have taken place in...
Like a crucifixion.
What?
Do you have anything? You want to go to the crucifixion, but what about the birth? You said you had some stuff around, because in a couple days we have Christmas. Do you have information to give us about the birth?
Yes.
Let's start with the birth, and then we'll kill Jesus. Yeah. Go ahead. What happened here?
The one pyramid south of the Pepin, the first pyramid, defined as the DJED Isis pyramid, the Jeded Isis pyramid. Its causeway bisects the point, the so-called placement of the cave, the real cave, and the real cathedral on top of that cave of the birth of Jesus. That the line from the causeway, that Aten line, that Aten arm, limb, appendage, finger, foot, ankle, what have you. There's about 10 different languages involved with whatever you want to call that thing. From the disc, from the Stargate disc, the Einstein-Rosen bridge disc, the Stargate Einstein-Rosen bridge, Stargate, Star Trek, the warp drive, the warp core. It's all the same thing. Just a couple of them are fictional, and some of them are in real. The Jeded is a warp core fictionalized. Which is the if you what
you're saying this actually this Stargate exists. You know that's what they said. Why we went to war after 9/11 was to go to get to the Stargate and to take all the evidence in Basra. So there's a Stargate that aligns or is in some kind of correlation with where the Christ child was born. Is that what you're saying?
Part of it, yes, I'm aware of, and part of it I have no idea about. So yes, the Stargate from the Jeded Isis pyramid, its entrance temple, that Stargate to the Stargate of the Aten. The Aten is a circle. The Aten of the built into the entrance temple of the entrance, for lack of a better description, footman's wall, the guardhouse, the structure that's outside the gatehouse, as you go into the complex that holds the cave that's still in obvious evidence to this day, and the cathedral above that you'd leave the entrance temple of the Jeded Isis pyramid, and you would arrive through the bridge. Idea/hypothesis, because there's a lot of evidence to back this up, to arrive at the gatehouse of to the complex that leads to the cave where supposedly Jesus was born 2,020 years ago. That'd be one of them. Another event that took place was from the Bent Pyramid, and its entrance temple. It's the Aten that's built into that entrance temple to King Solomon's temple, which Jesus did some other stuff at King Solomon's temple with its own gatehouse, with its own circle, that the entire Freemasonry derives from that concept. And the reason why I know that as a matter of absolute fact, at least 75% of that is absolute hardcore fact, is because I am a Freemason. I've been through the ceremonies. I've observed the rituals. I've observed the situation. and that is that interaction with that South Gatehouse is a huge part of Freemasonry. Now, for the crucifixion, that there's no way that the trial for Jesus could have taken place in any place other than what was called Traitor's Post, which was in about 220 AD. The name was changed from Traitor's Post to the Umbilicus of Rome, and the GPS is really easy to find regarding the Umbilicus. It's a dozen feet east of the Temple of Concord and a few dozen feet south of the Curia Julii. So the triangulation is pretty easy. The reason why you have that triangulation is because the priests would be from the Temple of Concord a couple dozen feet, less than 3 dozen feet to your left, and the clergy would be in charge, being the functionality of the trial. Directly in front of you would be the Senate, who would be your judge and jury, and the citizens of Rome would gather around into the forum and the hills to the west, to your right, to your left, Escaline Hill in front of you, and the Palatine Hill behind you. The population of Rome would then gather to watch the trial of the traitor, hence the point of Traitor's Post. The first documented person who was put on trial at Traitor's Post would be Remus, for being a traitor to his brother Romulus, who then, the trial took place, trial by combat. Romulus was killed. Remus was killed. Romulus then paraded the body around, going, "I'm king. What part of I'm king do you not understand?" And then that is, in a nutshell, the memento mori ceremony. 1A, death. 1B, an emotional response. Killing your brother is not exactly a guilt-free situation or an emotional-free situation. And the parade after, that's part 2. 1A, killing, assault, some type of an assault. 1B, an emotional response. Part 2 would be the parade. This ceremony would be repeated and repeated and repeated continuously almost every day from the point where Romulus killed Remus till the last day of the Roman Empire, and the gladiator games came from this ceremony. This ceremony is also the namesake from the fourth pyramid down on the third pyramid south on the Giza Plateau, the fourth pyramid down from the top, from the Judefre down. Judefre, Khufu, Khafre, Menkaure, Memkaure. The Memento Mori ceremony. This is also how the trial was also how Jesus was tried and executed. He was put through layers and layers and layers of the Memento Mori ceremony to execute him, where in the execution site was approximately where the obelisk that sits in St. Peter's Square now is approximately where the crucifixion actually realistically, physically took place, although that was technically speaking outside of Rome proper, but it's only by about a mile. The obelisk was moved into place, and the cross put placed on top of that obelisk to mark approximately, by the Julii family, approximately where the crucifixion actually took place physically down to the inch. That is
wow.
That is the evidence I gathered that several years ago, but I didn't have the context for it yet.
Let me just ask you one question, because it's a critical one. They say that Mary Magdalene claimed Jesus' body, and in Jewish custom, only a wife could do that, and
yes.
So scholars use that as look, he was married to her. She was his wife.
Yes.
You got the same conclusion.
Absolutely. Can't be any other way. She would, and if you want to add evidence to that, no problem. It is not kosher in any way, shape, or form, even the mildest amount, no possible way, not going to happen, period. for anybody but blood relatives to see the execution and to handle the body immediately after. Unless you are a blood relation, you can't handle his body. You can't handle their body, especially an executed victim. So if Mary Magdalene and his mother were there to handle his body to take it off the cross, she had to be blood relation. Period. There's no Jewish middle ground to that concept. If he was a high ranking royal, being king of the Jews makes him the definition of a high ranking royal. Nobody but blood relatives could handle his body. Period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
I'm sorry. Hold that thought, because the music is starting in just about 30 seconds. But we'll pick up. So both of you remember where you are and remember what you're going to ask, because we'll be back after the break in 4 minutes. So Mary Magdalene gets the body. She has to be blood relatives, and the break is starting. Mute our mic, and we'll be back in 4 minutes. See you in 4.
And we'll be right back after this message.
Many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
The future is uncertain. I know this. Death is inevitable. I know this. But one thing is certain. As free men, it is our right to live unencumbered and in peace. And those times are quickly drawing to an end. And in these times, peace is certainly an illusion. And as the chains grow tighter, our ability to slip those chains increase incrementally with every passing moment. Inaction is no longer an option. It's time to raise our voices like a cacophony of thunder and lightning and tell the masters no more. And this is Nighthawk, and I say, for myself, no more. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, because the freedom is slipping away.
Hello, my name is Mr. Rowe. I am the host of Reality Extraction, Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I utilize logic, intellect, and magic to methodically atomize, vivisect, analyze, examine, study, scrutinize, and extract an essence of reality from a fog of illusion and confusion. You can find me on Studio B every Thursday, 1700 hours Pacific Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern. No topic taboo, no subject too strange. I strive to take a neutral standpoint during the dissection of the topic at hand. That's Reality Extraction with Mr. Rowe on Revolution Radio.
Syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week. Yes. But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting. Yes, I see. By a civil majority in the case of purely internal affairs. Be quiet. But by a 2/3 majority in the case of more... Be quiet. I order you to be quiet. Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look.
is a flesh wound. I don't believe I've seen such a display of courage, skill, nerve, grace, and stupidity.
I'll do you for that. What? Come here. What are you going to do, bleed on me? I'm invincible. You're a loony. The Black Knight always triumphs.
Roundtable Live, Monday through Friday, 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Bring your mind, bring your ideas, bring your voice. King Arthur had nothing on us here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com.
Feel that things were not quite right, that everything was just ever so slightly askew?
Do you have, to paraphrase Morpheus, a splinter in your mind?
If you're interested in hearing the latest information about UFOs, the paranormal,
ancient cultures and structures,
monatomic elements,
longevity,
fantastic discoveries in science,
download it to your brain,
then tune into us. Hi, I'm Dave.
And I'm Mackie.
And we are Shiny Side Out, Sundays 2 to 4 a.m. Eastern. See you then.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. All right. Thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
Aloha and welcome back to Stargate to the Cosmos. I'm Lessin with Dr. Sasha, Alex Lessin, producer Debra DeFranco, and our guest is T.R. Welling. But before we get back to our show, I'd like to remind everybody to please go over to the donation button on revolution.radio. And the top left, you can make your one-time donation, and the Patreon button, make your recurring donation. And we do thank you very, very much for your donation. You allow us to keep bringing you shows like this. Thank you. Aloha. Okay, getting back to where we left off. Go ahead, Sasha. What do you want to say?
Well, okay, so that we're looking at a lot of focus on the birth of Jesus and the crucifixion of Jesus, but I'm interested in the in between too, because people don't realize, but my scholarship seems to tell me that it was a really big deal politically that he was called the Anointed One, which means that's the person who is supposed to be the king of Israel, not the Roman puppet that was there. And Jesus coming to Jerusalem was with this huge potential of overthrowing this materialistic Roman Empire. At least that's where my analysis takes me. What do you get? DR, what's your take?
Well, many things. Many things. I can fill like 4 hours with what I have to say about this subject. Which reminds me, I have a lot of recordings of these subjects on my YouTube channel. Just follow my name. It's my name on my YouTube channel. I've got 350, 400 recordings, some short, some really, really long. But to be specific is that I follow the scientific method. So I'm all about show me the evidence, and I follow the evidence. So let's break this down into what physical, tangible evidence do we have of Jesus having anything at all to do with the Roman Empire after the crucifixion. And the answer is that we have to remember base science. Base science tells us that most of the pharaohs had between 1 and 5 pharaoh names. And all the popes, the majority of the popes, from the one after Simon Peter to the current 2, they also had a throne name, a papal name, a throne of St. Peter's name. They've all so you have 4,000, almost 4,500 years from Narmer which is the word narmer means to strike. 1A, Memento Mori Ceremony Part 1A. To strike, to impact, to cause item B to change its trajectory based off of an action that item B A did. That's basic physics. So you have to strike is what the name of Narmer translates to. This is the exact same name, the exact same meaning as Caesar. His name means to impact, to strike, to cause item A causes item B to change its trajectory. So you have the name built into the aspect of the Memento Mori Ceremony Part 1A. I'm getting to a point. Okay. So you have a name recognition situation going on. And with that name recognition, you have, so are there 5 guys operating in Rome at the same place, who are doing basically the same action in a very not that big a place at the same time? And the answer is yes. You have Saint Mark, you have Simon Peter, you have Emmanuel, and you have, of course, Jesus Christ. Well, Jesus Christ is a title, and you have Mark is also a title. There's one person alive at a time capable of, inside of an empire, culture, kingdom, what have you, alive, capable of using the word Mark as a name. And that would be the mark of the emperor or the mark of the pope. The mark of a pope is called the papal, is the papal signature, and the papal signature is not in effect until it's the mark of the papal seal is made. So Mark would be one of the names that points to. Mark points to the actual name of that person would be Emperor Claudius, and everything we know about Emperor Claudius points to the fact that his personality was close to mirror that of Jesus. By the way, and that the information and scientific evidence to suggest that Emperor Claudius had a lot to do with Christianity is that, remember all those buildings that I mentioned on the east side of the forum a while ago? Those buildings from the Temple of Caesar to the Temple of Julia, Temple of Venus, from the bridges, the catwalks, the bridges and such that were in existence back then that have long since been destroyed. From the Temple of Venus to the City of Pillars that was where the Colosseum is now, to bridges that connected to the Bath of Titus and to the Palace of Claudius, and from the Palace of Claudius to the Domus, the house, the mansion, the estate of the Julii family, which was is on the south on the northeast corner of the Palatine Hill, and also connecting bridges from the Domus Julii back to the Temple of Venus, which makes a complete circle of bridges connecting those buildings. Claudius was in charge of building 3 of them. His family had maintained the other 3 for the previous 1,000 years plus. The Domus Julii, the Temple of Caesar, and the Temple of Venus had been under, well, obviously the Temple of Caesar had not been there for centuries, if not millennia. It had only been there for a few decades, but it was still maintained by the Julii family. The Temple of Venus had been built and maintained. It was in existence before Romulus and Remus were born, despite the propaganda that suggests otherwise. The Domus Julii, also the same thing. So there's an infrastructure of buildings that Claudius had either direct responsibility for either commissioning, designing, and building, or he was part of a family who had built and designed and maintained those buildings for either decades as of course of that one building, or centuries as according to the other buildings. So, and when one of my other theories is that Gene Roddenberry in the middle to late 40s was standing approximately right there, a couple dozen feet to the west of the Temple of Caesar. He looked at the Temple of Caesar, the hills to the north and south, right and left, to the Esquiline Hill to the north and the left, the Palatine Hill, the buildings on top of those hills, and the Colosseum in front of him on the other side of the Temple of Venus, and his brain went, the Enterprise. 2 decades later, he wrote that into a fictionalized script form and created the entire universe of Star Trek from those buildings that were very, very likely possibility built by at least some of those buildings were built by Emperor Claudius, who used mark to mark things as being from him, which all kings, all emperors, all popes use that mark. There's only one person allowed to use that mark at a time. So Saint Mark, so you have Emperor Claudius, you have Saint Mark, you have Jesus Christ, Emmanuel. So you have four of the 5 names necessary to be able to have the Pharaoh title appointed to Jesus Christ. Now, additionally to that, after the Last Supper was finished, Jesus stood up and said this phrase, which has been so badly mistranslated, it's difficult to fathom why it wasn't, how it wasn't done purposefully. Saying it in English, then translating it back into Latin and Greek, and then, of course, hieroglyphics, it brings the phrase into perspective. You will build it in English, it's the word build. In Latin, it would be the word Peter. You will Peter your house, your sacred house. Well, in English, it's sacred house. In hieroglyphics, in Latin, that word is Simon. They didn't use the word sacred house. They didn't use the word temple. They would use the word Simon. So, Peter, Simon, your house. That would be build your house upon what is a direct reference to the Ben stone, which is a pyramid upside down. Upon me, and me is a direct reference to the first pharaoh, Ptah, Ptah. So right there in the gospel, that verse translates to, I'm accepting the mantle of Pharaoh. Call me Simon Peter, because remember, Latin is first, last is first, first is last. So you take Peter and Simon and flip them, Simon Peter. In the Gospels itself, Jesus is saying, I'm the new Pope, I'm the new Pharaoh. My Pharaoh name is Simon Peter.
Yeah, and Ptah is Enki's name from the Akkadian.
Yeah.
And he's got the big hat which goes into the popes, the kingship. They have what do they call those? The pope hat.
Mitre.
The mitre, yeah.
Yes. Then the mitre is from a reference to Jacob and Jonah and the whale. That's the whale hat. The whale hat. Now, if you take that same line that created from the Judea pyramid down to the middle of the Khufu, down to the middle of Khafre, Memkare, down to Bent. Take that same line and take it horizontal and apply it to the flank of a fish or a whale. The dark top skin and the white bottom skin of a marine creature, it creates the image of a whale or a fish. So where was what 3 days did he spend in the belly of a fish? He spent them in the pyramids. So that's a reference to that. The mitre is a reference to the pyramids, which the Capitol Hill looks directly at.
It's so interesting that the whale's belly itself might actually be a ossified giant whale from times of the multi-millions of years ago, that you may actually be in the belly of a ossified whale.
Limestone comes from that, yes. That's where limestone comes from, is the belly of seas, the bottom of seas.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
It's a limestone is petrified marine leftover.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's lots going on. So you have that information, and you also have so you then take the name thing and those buildings and apply it to what was happening right beforehand, and of course Caligula moving the city of IWNW, otherwise known as Heliopolis, from Egypt to Caligula transformed a marsh into a dry dock. He then moved the city of IWNW, otherwise known as Heliopolis, from Egypt to that dry dock, and that dry dock was located to the as you're looking at the Vatican, to the right, to the left. You're looking at that dry dock is to the left of the Vatican as you're looking at down the throat of St. Peter's Square toward the Basilica. And the materials of IWNW were then made into into a Circus Maximus where the Vatican sits now. Where St. Peter's Basilica and St. Peter's Square sits now is where the materials were moved to, courtesy of Caligula. Soon after that, he evacuated, or he was very, very not likely executed by the Senate, and then Claudius was put in charge. The Emperor Claudius was put in charge, who we now have a kind of a mathematical understanding that Claudius was actually Jesus. And he was on the throne for the next 20 or 30 years. Although the end part with the Nero thing, that's mostly fiction. That's a weirdity that Nero and Claudius were co-emperors at a time, because Nero is not who Nero claimed to be. Nero was actually, based on lots and lots of other evidence, Nero was actually what the Dead Sea Scrolls define as the evil priest Paul. And the evil priest Paul. What?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So he got jealous and got upset because he wasn't considered the Messiah, and so despite the fact that he had nothing to do with any of it for 7 years, and he started his ministry 7 years later, and he was arrested and brought to Rome for trial, to be tried and convicted on Traitor's Post, which happened. He was tried and convicted years and years later on Traitor's Post. It was still called at a time. Later on, it would be in 220-ish, give or take. It would be the name change would be to the Umbilicus of Rome. That he was jealous, and various assorted psychological terms apply here, and he demanded his own pharaoh name. So the Senate gave him the name Nero, because Nero was a member of the Julia family, but he and most of the rest of the Julia family had evacuated out years before, or it's either evacuate or die. So most of the family decided to evacuate rather than face execution in Rome proper, and which set up some very interesting things that occurred over the next several centuries. But you have Paul, Nero, and co-emperor with Claudius. And over the next several centuries, the fact that they were co at the time, also the end result of that co-emperor time situation ended with one, Paul was executed, Nero was executed about the same time, semi the same time, as well as the eruption of Pompeii occurred right in the middle of that. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff all happening all within a similar time period. They're not exactly the same time period. It didn't happen the same day. The end of Paul, Nero executed at the same time. That the Paul persona had to be executed first. It's a society that liked mass murder. Colosseum is just a couple dozen feet away. So that picking some prisoner and executing him and giving him the name Paul, that for them that worked. Horribly, but it still worked. And so then Nero having his new pharaoh name, and then he was later on executed because he got too big for his britches, and he wanted to have more power than the Senate would allow. And the Senate went, "Well, we have a solution: arrest him and kill him. This wouldn't be the first emperor we've executed, and won't be the last by a long shot." The next 20 emperors were executed.
What about Jesus rising? Was that truth or myth? And how did that happen? Was he really dead? Was he faking his death? How did they revive him? Or did he revive himself? What's your theory on? We have him crucified. We're born and then we have him crucified. So did he rise again?
Well,
and how?
That would be for theologians to discuss. There's no scientific evidence one way or the other. The trial would have taken place on a trader's post, the umbilicus, and he would have been buried in the catacombs where most of the popes for the next 2,000 years would be buried, and coming and rising from the grave 3 days later. That's for other people than me to talk about and to discuss. I have no opinion one way or the other. There's no scientific way to determine that. There's no evidence regarding one way. But he did. But what he did next was documented and is part of history. That he did his own parade from the Vatican Hill, reversing the course that he did across the field of Mars, south of the lake that used to be there, which is where the Pantheon in that neighborhood is now. The lake was filled in, like within 10-15 years of that event. The lake was filled in and buildings were put on top, and that lake was then forgotten about. Which is when the Pantheon was built, like 30 years later. He then went back through Trader's Gate, the Gate of Janus, and then made his way into the Curia Julii and said, "Well, that was unsuccessful. What you going to do next?" And they said, "Sir, yes, sir. How can we address you, sir, emperor, sir?" And he then sat on the throne as emperor for the next 20, 30 years, 40 years, and reversed so the answer to your question would become, he did the mathematics involved with the part 3, part 4, part 5 of the Memento Mori ceremony as to the part of the structure of the Memento Mori ceremony. That's what the that's what the Romans called the ceremony. The Greeks called it an association with the demigod thing. Hercules was, and among many others, was part of the ceremony of the Memento Mori. By the way, and this is included in the Gospels, that Jesus kept wandering away from the campfire with his friends the night before he was arrested and interacting with the Sabine women. Well, that's the 1B part. there's an emotional reaction when a male gets around females. However you want to from the most innocent to the most not, however you want to fill that in, there's no evidence regarding anything other than there's going to be an emotional reaction between males and females. So he went to the Sabine female temple 2-3 times as it's documented in the Gospels. He then would so resurrecting is part of the Egyptian mythos of the Memento Mori ceremony, which is where whatever the Egyptians called it, the Book of the Dead, the ceremonies of that. Oh, which reminds me, for the last 4 days I've been working on this specific part of the work regarding the funerary rites, the prayers, the stuff involved in that situation of Egyptology of the hieroglyphics, written in hieroglyphics in direct association with the mastabas and the pyramids. Can those prayers be defined, being reinterpreted, reperspectivized into being physics equations, either astrophysics with the radio telescopes of the pyramids and the Colosseum, or could they be quantum physics? Quantum physics being aspects of the quantum realm, the mathematics, the equations of electricity, and since we're talking about electricity every 5 minutes, can those prayers be actually a misunderstood, mistranslated, miscomprehended, wrong perspective of were those prayers actually physics equations? And I'm thinking
they may be
very likely
fractals of the same ideotype.
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes. So that's what I spent the last 4 days trying to figure out how to translate that. Go ahead.
J.J. Hertalk did a presentation where he set up a video in the Great Pyramid, and he started doing the names of God, and then it activated this giant light that was pitch dark in there, and as they were just saying the names of God over and over, a group chanting it, the pyramid lit up inside. It was, it's like somebody was coming in with a floodlight.
Wow. Amazing.
He showed us the video. Well, it was actually filmed back then, because that was back in the 90s, right? So what you're saying, maybe the words themselves have some kind of activation and energies that affect this reality.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of scientific evidence to back that up. There's some laboratory tests regarding sound having direct impact on can sound be used to do those exact things, and it has been proven in the laboratory that that's independently possible to use sound and focused electromagnetic vibrations to create sound and or move things. Just hit high C and you're going to shatter glass. So it's the same physics principles.
Or could they have left some technology in the pyramids that responded to certain names, certain tones, and once you hit it, it activated the light source?
Yes.
Instead of having a key, you just had a vocal that would activate systems.
Absolutely. No doubt.
Yeah. So you're saying that Jesus somehow survived and he went back on the throne for, another 20, 30 years. Then how did he die?
There's no real way. He may not have. He may have just drifted into the. He either, as the Gospels say, he went to heaven. Although there's some interesting stuff about that and the City of Pillars, because the City of Pillars was the City of Pillars where the Colosseum sits now. It was 100-foot pillars, and the buildings were on top of the pillars. So from ground level, from river level up, you're dealing with the whole city up there about 80 feet up. So with an illiterate culture, basically Manhattan, 80 feet, and the buildings start 80 feet off the ground, and they stretch anywhere between 50 and 200 feet above that. That's difficult to define how that wouldn't be considered some type of a heaven, go up to heaven, because you were not the only people allowed access to the City of Pillars were the Julia family and other the Julia family, the Lucia family, and other Jewish families were allowed up there. Everyone else was not allowed. So there's a thing going on there that in political and jealousy and other kinds of inappropriate behavior that he could have gone to heaven, whether that was quantum leap, left the physical plane and went to some kind of a quantum realm, went to that City of Pillars that was where the Colosseum is now, which Nero's, that was the era. The city of Rome did not burn. That Rome burned while Nero fiddled. What his object to destroy was that city of Pillars where the Colosseum is now. That's what he destroyed. Because most of the buildings around him, around that City of Pillars, were still intact for centuries after that. And they had been intact for centuries, if not a millennia. Will still some of them would even still be intact until about 650 AD. Well, if those buildings were intact, then what burned? Well, what burned, what was destroyed, what was obliterated from existence was that City of Pillars by Nero. He then used the rubble to fill in the wetland and build his Domus Aurea on top of it. A few years later, the Domus Aurea... Go ahead.
Well, that would tie in with Vimanas. Vimanas would come down, entire cities would come down and land. They could land on top of a mountain, and then the cities, the towns, the human population would build around these home of the gods, Olympus, and in India there's all these Vimanas and stories of Vimanas. So that sounds like instead of using a mountain, they used pillars, and they just landed their ship, the Vimana, and it was like instant city. And then you bring the population in around, and they become like the servants, and
of course,
and they're the gods are in service to humanity to help us grow and evolve, become conscious, and the humanity, of course, is there to kind of worship and look up to the gods. But of course, there's jealousy, and what was his name? Gilgamesh kept trying to get to heaven, right? And he went to the landing port. So we have all these stories that tie into each other. Go ahead, Sasha.
Yes.
You're wanting to say something? No,
it's just way far back. It's about the Romans in popular films and stuff. The Romans are made to be like, oh well, the population and these priests got us to kill Jesus. But my studies are showing that no, not at all. Rome was hard. They didn't want any rebellion, especially not someone that's saying materialism ain't where it's at.
Yes. Very true. They're all
the Roman system was terrible. It was slavery for the whole world, the worst kind of exploitation. It was it was something that the Jews fervently wanted to be free human beings, not be in this slavery system.
Yes. And part of the way that they were enslaved would be to be picked off and used as victims in the memento mori ceremonies that happened a lot.
Yep.
Which is actually a two-part ceremony. The torture part of the ceremony and the execution part of the ceremony took place in two different buildings. The cross part would take place on the western mole, a little bit of a hill, tiny hill, where to the east, and the temple, the temple of Janus to the west. That's where the execution would have taken place, and that's where the whole rigmarole would have happened regarding the knife. And then the priest or the commander would then go to the North Temple and then perform 1B with willing or not willing, fill in the blank, and then that action of fill in the blank would then transfer the soul from the victim to the afterlife instead of in the stead of the commander. The commander would then know that he in video game terminology, he would have an extra life. So the Jewish victim would be killed and the body disposed of in the catacomb, and he or the clergy would then go next door to north and to then perform, and then that performance would then according to that mythology, according to that infrastructure, would then transfer the souls. So the commander would his place in hell or the afterlife would then be would then be filled by the guy the person who was just killed. That's how the entire culture operated. They would then, every time there would be a battle or some kind of a situation, the leaders, the commanders, the military would then go kill people, would go sacrifice them, human sacrifice. Hey, go stand in the afterlife for me. I'll then go to battle, do stuff, and go into battle, almost identical headspace as the samurai, assuming they were immortal, with no fear of death. They're, the semi-different situation. Some samurai would sacrifice a peasant or two on the way to perform the same exact action. The peasant would then be in the afterlife for the samurai, and the samurai would go into battle immortal, at least mentally, perspective-wise, immortal. That's how the entire Roman Empire functioned, operated, based off of that sequence of actions, which is what Jesus was trying to fix.
The same identical thing is still going on these clandestine cults throughout the world to this day.
That's very, very true, including that our current political situation. There's been 340,000 deaths, human sacrifices, in order to be able to keep somebody in the group in power.
Yep.
Purposeful.
Yeah. Yep. So how does it end? We're in the middle of a high drama right now. How does it end?
That's an excessively good question.
Pardon? Go ahead.
That is an excessively good question. I do not have an answer for it. All I know is that Jesus was part of the reason why he was here was to be able to, Jesus saves, that phrase actually comes from this action. All those people that are in the stead of, all those people that are in hell or in the afterlife in the stead of somebody else, what his mission was, part of his mission, was to go into go do that whole death thing and go into the afterlife, go into hell, go into whatever, and say, you no longer have to have the burden of standing in hell for somebody else. Come with me. You can go to paradise. You don't have to stand in the afterlife for this person who was really, really, really bad. You don't have to do this anymore. That's actually what Jesus saves means. All the 1A victims no longer have to stand in hell for somebody else.
So what was behind that remember you are dead? That was, we started the show with, you had to remember you are dead. What does that mean?
Remember you have a victim in hell for you. Remember, you have a victim in hell for you. There's someone in hell for you right now. You're dead. Your place in death is already taken by somebody else. Someone is standing in your death place.
Wow. Okay. We've covered a lot of ground. Okay, what next? So here we are, 2020 years later.
Yes, ma'am.
And we have this story that has basically dominated the consciousness of humanity.
Yes.
And it's still playing out. We've got this religious right and all these different religions, and they're constantly at battle with each other.
1A, yes.
Arguing and now we have, and it's a political battle. It's a religious battle. It's a culture battle, you know.
Yes.
I don't know what my question is. I'm just putting it out. What's my question, Sasha? Help me out here.
I can answer the question.
What my friends among the Anunnaki say is, in essence, the Anunnaki have decided to try to clean up the mess that their hybrids and Prince Marduk, Satan, has created by playing us off against each other, and Thoth and Enki, or Thoth, or Aquarius, if you want to call him that, and Jesus are coming back to help us. And I ain't seen none of them myself, but people who I really love say those things to me. It makes me feel good.
My friend Glenn Bogue, who's going to come on Saturday, because we missed Christmas because I have somebody else, and he says that Jesus is Enki and Mary is Nimma and they're the Anunnaki, and then he would just disappear. Like he said, Jesus went back on the throne and ruled for another 30 years. And they didn't die. They're immortal beings. They'd go to different parts of the world. They'd change their identity. They'd be known as something else, and that they're still walking amongst us. And that Mary is Nimma's Mary, and Mary came at the Guadalupe and the Fatima, and they still come in and, you know, help out here and there, but he can't rule. It's not his turn to rule until the age of Aquarius, which is upon us. I'm not sure what day he gets to rule. But the Anunnaki never left. It's only been, it's 3,600 years. It hasn't even been a year for them yet. But what is their year?
It's sped up to 3,450.
Okay, 3,450 years. When did they left around what, 2160 is what Sitchin said, or 2150, what was it? Anyway, I get mixed up with the years, but apparently there was a mass exodus, so they left the
It was in 2024 is when the exodus started, but it took over, many hundred years.
Right, 100 years. Because
they went off from Nazca.
For them, 100 years is a day, right? So when they do things, it's taking many years for them, but it's just, days for them. So, so we got another, 15 minutes. Well, let's wrap this up. Where can we go with all this? This is incredible information. Like you said, we could talk for 4 hours about all this.
Yes, ma'am.
What would you like to say, Sasha?
Just, I think that it's, besides all the facts, ma'am, besides all the facts, it's a more important thing for me, from my perspective, is what does having the feeling of there's a resonant part of you, every human being or every molecule in the universe, that for that matter, that loves every other part, that feels oneness with every other part. I think that's what the essence of the archetype of Jesus is to me. And however you think of it, is it your loving heart? Is it your oneness with everybody and everything and every not thing? So it's like different people symbol things different ways. And you can see by the totality of that person's being, it doesn't matter what symbols they use, you can get the whole picture of what are they living out.
Yes. Yeah, if you add and along with what you're saying is that they breaking down the concept of Jesus Christ, the Christian, a being of light. Well, that's the east face of Janus. What the early Christian church decided is that they made Jesus the embodiment, the idea, the concept that he took on in that whole functionality and structure. The east face of Janus. He is the eyes looking east. He is the body of the person looking east, which brings up some interesting concepts, because what I didn't mention beforehand is that if you etymologically speaking, if you break down the concept and the structure of the word Heliopolis, it's Helios, which is Greek for the rising sun, and Opolis, which does not, this is easier to translate, understand in German, because in German you have a will. ville, a villa. That would be just a city, a city that comes from a fort, or just a settlement, the settlement that grew up into a more substantial thing. It's just a city. It's not a sacred city. It's not a castle. It is not a helm. So you have a ville and a helm. Well, you have the villa is not opolis. Opolis in Greek translates to sacred city, or in Latin, castle. So you have castle, you have the rising sun, the morning star, for lack of a better description, as Helios, and you have Helios and castle. Well, Helios in the Elder Futhark language, which is the mathematics that I mostly deal with in regards to going back to etymology. Okay, what's the root? Well, the root is the Elder Futhark, which is the last in the line of the languages from the Indo-European language. I saw the Indo-European language about 20 years ago. The last line of languages from Indo-European and from Indo-European to the last of the languages was the Elder Futhark, and the Younger Futhark, which I just found the Younger Futhark in the pyramids themselves. The 16-day month of the Elder Futhark calendar. It's 24 months. It's not lunar based. It's our Earth based. It's a fortnight month. It's 19 months of 15 days and 6 months of 16 days. But the 16th day is a high holy day, which comes back to Opolis, and the Opolis being specifically the temples in the city would have specific ceremonies and observances during those high holy days, which is what was wrong with the Julian calendar is that it's a 360 day calendar. The problem is it's supposed to be a 365.4 day calendar, but from creation of the 365.4 day to the implementation, they lost the high holy days, the 5.4 day holy days that were supposed to be added at October 31st, December 22nd. Of course, the 0.4 would be February 2nd, Easter, March 22nd, and of course midsummer, the June 22nd, and then there's the September 22nd as well. So you have those specific dates when the equinoxes and solstices are happening. Those are high holy days that are not supposed to be talked about, mentioned, and nothing special happens on those days because they're holy by themselves. The Julian calendar was wrong because that extra high holy stuff was removed, which means that Pope Gregor had to change it in 1580 something. He had to change it to Pope Gregor the 13th, based off the mathematics of Leonardo da Vinci, who did the mathematics, but the Vatican could not accept it until decades later to give their nice egos a rest. So there's plenty of distance between the person who did the mathematics, the only person alive capable of doing the math to be able to fix the Julian calendar, make it the Gregorian. So half a century was about right for them to do their egotistical crossover, to have no connection between the math they were implementing and who did it fit more than a half century before, who had been dead for, or at least metaphorically dead for since 1518. But and I found that information out through the studying Versailles, which the study of Versailles came from me studying the burning of Notre Dame. That 800-year-old cathedral replaced a 1,000-plus-year-old temple that had sat there since the Trojan War. That the Trojan War led to the creation of the Roman Empire 577 years later, that led to the Julian family doing their thing and Caesar doing his thing with Spartacus. By the way, it was a partnership. The Thracian king Spartacus and Julius Caesar, the future emperor, worked together during that whole thing. That they were in partnership. They worked together. They just made it look like they were enemies. But and Spartacus was not killed. That's pure fiction. That's pure Roman propaganda. Spartacus took on his Roman name, his other Roman name, and merged into society, into Roman society, in one of the 50 estates that he and his men had captured, and absorbed the treasuries of the guys who owned those estates. He just picked one or a collection of them, and was a backup army for Caesar to do his thing. And the Spartacus's scouts went north, scattered out all the terrain, so that when Caesar did march his army north several years later, he had instant, up-to-date scouting reports as to where the troops were, what strengths they were, strengths, weaknesses, and the defensive strengths and weaknesses, and everything. He had it all mapped out before he took one step into Gaul. So the entire battle basically was him looking like a genius. In actuality, it was extremely well planning over the course of the previous several decades with the help of Spartacus, which then led to. Go ahead.
It's so close. What was Spartacus's new name? You said he had a new name, new Roman name.
No idea.
No idea. Okay,
so
why the Romans go north? Apparently, that was Enki's territory. He had gone north. He created, all the different the circles, the stone circles. He'd gone north with Thoth and Thoth, and they colonized. So Ireland and all that. Where you're from? So you're a descendant of Enki's clan. But then, I guess Caesar is Roman is Amylo's clan. So that they were marching off to war he was marching north to take out his brother. There you go. The brothers fighting and killing each other, just like.
Then he reincarnated as Kirk Douglas.
Then he reincarnated as Kirk Douglas.
Well, there was a huge war going on in Europe at the time between the descendants of the good people and the descendants of the bad people, because ECU's people kept going up into Europe and being jerks about it. And one of the things that Caesar was trying to do was to go into the scouting reports were to find the pockets of ECU's descendants, the Hyksos descendants, and remove them from being jerks, and so that allowed the good people to thrive without having the military threat of the descendants of the Hyksos constantly trying to kill them.
Yeah.
That's why many cities went, Caesar, come here. Hey, brother, come on in. You're welcome. Hey, what's going on? Yes, we're Romans. Everything's cool. And others were knockdown, drag-out battles. Well, the knockdown, drag-out battles were the Hyksos and the friends, the people that opened their gates and said, hey, Rome, come on in. You're welcome. Those were.
Are you there?
Welcome Caesar as brother, and the descendants of Agamemnon did not welcome Caesar as a brother. It was the exact opposite. The Agamemnon was a Hyksos.
That's right.
The Hyksos culture has changed about 10,000 times. So it's just look at their slavery and other inappropriate actions, and you'll be able to pretty quickly identify who the descendants of ECU are. They like slavery, they like killing, they like doing human sacrifice, they like that kind of stuff. Anyway, go ahead.
Dominate your consciousness, yes.
All right. My mind hurts. Anyway, we have 3 minutes. We need to put this out visually for me. I'm a visual learner, but it's fascinating. Okay, we have 2 minutes before the show ends. What would you like to do to wrap this up?
I remember I have a YouTube channel where I talk about a lot of these things. It's my name, T.R. Welling. The full name, to make it a little bit more interesting and to distinguish me, is Brother T. Robert Ogle Welling 32 Knight, because I'm a Mason, and that's my full name. And I have 350 or so, give or take, shows you up there right now that most of them have graphics, and I cover a wide range of subjects. And some of the images are just me talking, and some of them are packed with graphics. So I'm a one-person operation, so I do what I can. So please come to subscribe to my channel, and there's about 6 different shows in my head right now that I want to record next. And some of the subjects that I talked about today are also some of them I've already covered, and some of the stuff I haven't covered yet. But I'll go into much greater detail in those situations. But and also enjoy my own science of erdology, AERDOLOGY. Erdology. It means the study of Earth, and the Earth's fixed points in its orbit around the sun is what the base of the science is. The equinoxes and solstices, those 8 fixed points mathematically are what you measure from, and that's where the Babylonians created the calendar from. The calendar we operate from, and our compass system, the 360-degree compass, that's where it's all from.
Well, I want to thank you very much for coming on today, and thank you, Debra DeFranco, our producer. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you,
Sasha. And we'll have you back again sometime. That was fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Love and blessings. Aloha to everybody, and happy holidays, however you celebrate them.
Yep.